वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Namaste and a hearty welcome to one and all for today's 63rd session of our series Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. Let me start by recalling our late K.M. Karyappa, who was the Commander-in-Chief of our Indian Army, a patriot, brave and committed soldier of our country. I remember him. I would like us to remember him with respect, as tomorrow is K.M. Karyappa's Jayanti. In today's session, Arjuna and Bhagwan Sri Krishna continue the dialogue of Ishvara Swarupam, or the nature of God. Today, in verses 36 to 40 of the 9th chapter, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, shall be explained by Srimati, today verses 36 to 40 shall be explained by Srimati Rama Gopalakrishna, Kumari Varsha, Dr. Sheila and Srimati Pallavi. Dr. Ravi Shankar Dattatri shall moderate today's session and give an introduction to the day's topics, and also highlighting the key aspects of today's verses. Over to Dr. Ravi Shankar sir.
Vishwaroopadarshana namaha. Sadashiva samarambham Shankaracharya madhyamam Asmadacharya paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. The previous session had this phrase, Bhita bhitaha punah punah bhayas vistachetah san pranamya prahvaha bhutva. After having seen the Vishwarupa, Arjuna is shaken. He's got bhaya, very important bhaya. In spite of having seen the Vishwaroopadarshana with all his happiness and sense of great elation, he also has bhaya, and he's got so much of scare in him. And that takes us to this session of today. Who is the exalted bhakta is what we should understand by this end of this particular chapter. Vishwaroopadarshana Yoga, as we all know, particularly from the 7th to the 10th chapters, have explained the Ishvara Swarupam. And we are very clear in our mind that Ishvara is the Jagat Karanam, both the intelligent and the material cause. And we are also very clear that he is the Abhinna Nimitta Upadara Karanam iti Ishvara, which means one material cause appears manifold. So the Karya Darshanam is essentially the material Karana only. And this is an understanding that we should remember through all these chapters. We are aware that gold is in the Karana Avastha, in this ornament that we see, which is the Karya Avastha. In the same way, Ishwarasya Avastha Bhedaha Eva Prapancha. It is a difference in the status of Ishvara which gives rise to this Prapancha. Which means Ishvara Eva Prapanchaha. This Ishvara himself becomes the Prapancha, and this Prapancha is none other than Ishvara. World as the embodiment of Ishvara is Vishwaroopadarshana. World remains as this ordinary world, but what changes is our attitude. And this extraordinary attitude is what makes this ordinary world appear like an extraordinary world. The Divya Chakshu is born out of an understanding which requires bhakti for Ishvara first, and it requires a tremendous mental refinement and an intellectual drill. Krishna has blessed Arjuna with this Divya Chakshu, which is an attitudinal change, particularly creating a mind free from ahankara and mamakara. I, me, mine factors have been removed temporarily from the mind of Arjuna, who actually is a very well versed person, but he still has some ahankara and mamakara. And so the Divya Chakshu is removal of that attitude of ahankara and mamakara. Samjaya, as we know, had conquered these enemies, and therefore he is Samjayaha. The first stage of verses where Arjuna is wonderstruck is the Ascharyam, and then he goes through the second stage of Kala Tattvam, and Kala Tattvam of Kala Srishti Sthiti Laya itself is a part of the Vishwarupa. The understanding that it is not fate, but it is free will which is aligned with dharma is the order of the Vishwarupa. We understand Vishwarupa only when we understand that we are free with our free will, that we are in the chaukat of dharma. And then the third stage in this particular set of verses is the Sharanagati, which is a mental state of complete surrender. Ascharyam and bhakti, also the person has bhaya, as we talked about in the previous verse. So bhayam alone remains. The ascharya, the surprise, the wonderstruck, and the bhakti. Bhakti, as we know, is a part of the karma yoga, upasana yoga, and that is the underlying string. Without bhakti, none of these things happen. But they all go into the background. What remains in the forefront is bhayam. And as long as bhayam remains, we are clear in our mind that we have ahankara and mamakara, and we are not ready for Vishwarupa Ishwara Darshana, but we must continue with our Eka Rupa Ishwara Upasana. So much so, we would be able to recollect that jnanis are able to go to even the angry looking elephant or maybe a snake, and they are unperturbed. Animals are also unperturbed because that bhayam factor is not there. In the Upasamhara of this particular chapter, Krishna is clearly telling Arjuna that you got this rare opportunity of Vishwaroopadarshana only because of your bhakti. Bhagwan is not the means but the end, and that vairagyam is the only thing that gives more and more of bhakti. And what kind of a bhakti? It is not anya bhakti, it is ananya bhakti. It is undivided bhakti. It is not vyabhicharana bhakti, vyabhicharini bhakti, but is avyabhicharini bhakti, which is one pointedness, one single bhakti, which is undivided. Remember this story of Uddhava, who went to meet the gopis and wanted to give them a little discourse and inquire about them, and they all said just one thing: we are here, but our mind is with Lord Krishna in Mathura. Please don't tell us anything, because nothing else makes a difference. So physically they were in this place, but they had one pointed bhakti towards Krishna in Mathura. The advantages of Vishwarupa appreciation is all the raga-dveshas come down. Dvesha pariharaha. Amanitvam, that's something that we understood. Amanitvam, adambitvam, arjavam. And that amanitvam is completely accepting every glory to belong to the Lord. I am prideless. There is no pride, and that is amanitvam. Everything that we see and experience is divinized, and there is a vastness or expansion of the mind, chitta vishalatha. With this as an introduction to these set of verses, may I request Srimati Rama Gopal Krishna to explain the 36th verse of the 11th chapter. Srimati Rama ma'am, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om. I would like to brief shlokas 34 and 35 before explaining shlokas 36. Bhagavan indicates to Arjuna that he had killed the invincible ones on the Kaurava forces like Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, and Karna, whom Arjuna should have fought. The righteous Pandavas will win the war for sure. After the Vishwaroopadarshana, Arjuna prostrates to Sri Krishna again and again out of devotion and fear. With faltering voice, began to pray now as an enlightened one and a great devotee in wonder. When one sees one's own reflection in the mirror, rarely that person sees the reflecting surface of the mirror. The person watches either the surface of the mirror or the reflection in it, but not both simultaneously. Similarly, as long as Arjuna is preoccupied with the divine universal form, he does not recognize the infinite, which is the very core of Vishwarupa. In the next slide, that is the Shloka 35, Sanjaya reporting to the blind king Dhritarashtra says, Keshavasya etat vachanam shrutva. Listening to the assuring words of Sri Krishna, Kiriti the crowned Arjuna, with his palms folded, body trembling with fear, prostrates and addresses Sri Krishna with a throat choked out of fear and wonderment. In the shloka, in the next slide, the words Krutanjalihi, Namaskrutva, and Pranamya indicate Arjuna's devotion, respect, love, and admiration towards Sri Krishna. Arjuna was moved when he realized that Sri Krishna had fulfilled his responsibilities like killing his enemies to establish dharma and righteousness, punishing the adharmic ones to protect and support the righteous ones. So Arjuna prostrates to him with gratitude. The words Vepamanaha, Bhita Bhitaha indicate Arjuna's fear towards him. He narrates the reason for this in the shlokas to follow later. We admire and revere the God for his perfect actions, affection, and impartiality for us. We fear him when we realize our mistakes or imperfections. Arjuna had mixed feelings of reverence, gratitude, and fear in his mind towards Sri Krishna. Listening to the assuring words of victory in the war, Kiriti Arjuna expresses his feelings sagadgadam with a choked voice. Following few shlokas reveal the cognitive power of Arjuna to realize the divine truth behind the universal form. With this background, we try to understand the shloka 36, which is in the next slide. Arjuna uvacha sthane vrushikesh tava prakirtya jagat pravrushyatyanurajjate cha rakshamsi bhitani disho dravanti sarve namasyanti cha siddha sanghaha. In the next slide, it shows the Anvaya Artha of this shloka. Hrushikesha, Hrushikanam meaning Indriyanam Ishaha, one who has mastered his senses or the inner controller of all beings. Tava Prakirtya, by surrendering and glorifying you, Jagat Prahurushyati, the world rejoices. Cha Anurajjate, and thereby they develop Anuragaha. So their hearts are filled with deep love and devotion to you. Sthane meaning Yuktaha. It is but natural for them to get delighted praising your opulences. Whereas it is Thane, apt for Bhitani, fear-filled Rakshamsi, Rakshasas, Dishaha Dravanti, run away in all directions. At the subjective level also, The Rakshamsi can be negativities of the mind due to Arishad Vargas, Ahankara, and Mamakara. When we do Namasmarane of Bhagavan, the positive values increase and negativities disappear from the mind, which is represented by the word Rakshamsi. Rakshamsi. This is the fight between Devas and Asuras constantly happening in our mind. Survey all groups of Siddha Sanghaha. The enlightened ones are spiritually perfect beings. The Shankara Bhasha says Mahatmas, by following various paths like yoga, tapaha, mantradi, become siddhas. Sthani, it is but natural that namasyanti, meaning pranamanti, they also bow down to you. In all the paths, surrendering to the supreme truth constantly is the common factor. What happens when a person surrenders to the Lord is explained in the next shlokas. Harihi Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much for a very nice presentation and a very clear explanation. A couple of points about this verse is the strong raga-dvesha continues to keep us in Ishta Devata Bhakti, and the one who is non-complaining and who has that kind of a bhakti where there is no raga-dvesha goes towards Vishwarupa Bhakti. That's the difference between the two. And therefore, this mature bhakta, we were discussing about who is the exalted bhakta. The mature bhakta is the one who understands that the wonderful and the terrible, everything is a part of Vishwarupa. And having understood that, he enjoys it, he revels and lives with it, rather than having raga-desha for the wonderful or the terrible things. Now, it is universally accepted that these raga dveshas are of two things. The raga is towards the sukha dukkha hetu, and dvesha is for the dukkham and the dukkha hetu. Yatra yatra praharshaha tatra tatra anuraga. And very clearly, as you brought out, there is happiness, and when there is happiness, there is love. Prashyarti tasmat anurajyate. Swami Paramarthananda ji says that this word Rakshamsi, where the Rakshasas and the Asuras and all the evil forces of creation have been discussed in this particular verse, this special mantra is also being used as a Rakshogna mantra to take away all the negativities by reciting this particular mantra. If we are in Vishwarupa Bhakti, most of our problems are sorted out in this lifetime. The next verse is the 37th verse. The 37th verse is Kasmacha tena namarena mahatman gariyase brahmanaha api adikrite ananta devesha jagannivasa tvam aksharam sat asat tatparam yat. The bhaktas rejoice by glorifying you is a sentence. However, depending on where the emphasis is, bhaktas rejoicing by glorifying you exalts the bhaktas. But when the bhaktas rejoice by glorifying you, is the emphasis on none other than the Lord. This has to be understood. And in this verse, the Hetu Darshayanti, as Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya says, is that Bhagwan is the object, not the Bhakta. Suppress the Ahankara and the Mamakara, take away the Raga-dvesha tinted glasses, and the essence is you. The essence is Bhagwan. He is the only one who deserves the Namaskara. Arjuna has been understanding by now that his friend Krishna versus the Vishwaroopadarshana Krishna versus all the things that Krishna has shown him all this while, there is something more that he is not able to comprehend. And he's also got that little bhaya, that bhava of ahankara, mamakara also is there. But he knows that Krishna is now something really different. And so he's realizing that he's the only one who deserves the namaskara. There is a little interpretation that the Shankar Bhashya says. Who is the subject of glorification? Is it the bhakta, or it is the glorification of you in which the bhakta rejoices? And so it is very clearly understood, and that we should understand that love is anuragaha, which is the response to happiness. Harshadi Harsha Anuraga Vishaya is Bhagwan. Shankaracharya says, what is the reason for this Bhagwan being the sense of happiness? It is because Ishvara is Sarvatma Ishvara, which means he is the Atma of each one of us. And so the happiness goes to the source of happiness. Love is defined as our emotional attitude towards the source of that joy. And therefore Bhagwan Shankaracharya says that it is not the happiness that we are looking for, but it is the love for you, the love for the one that resides in each one of us. That is what we are looking for. Ananta is the timeless one in relation to time and space, and that is applicable to both the Saguna and the Nirguna Brahman, Shaguna Iswara and the Nirguna Brahman. From the Nirguna angle, Jiva is Anantaha, and Jiva is not Anantaha from the Saguna angle. But Ishvara, of course, is Anantaha both from the Saguna and the Nirguna point of view. The Lord of all the gods, including the Chaturmukha Brahma, is Devesha. Jagannivasa is both in the grammatical form, the Tat Purushartha and the Bahuvriyartha. You are the Adhara of this entire universe, as well as the world resides in you. Aksharam is the Param Aksharam, which is the only one absolute Paramarthika Satyam. Kim Tad Sad Asat Iti is being explained, and we have to understand that Sat is the Karyam, Asat is the Karanam. Apekshita Bhava Abhava is the meaning, whereas the reasoning, when you're looking for a reason and you have an absence of reason, that could be the understanding of the Sat and Asat aspect. Vyakta and Avyakta could be an understanding, and the Karya and the Karana could be understanding of this particular verse. May I now request Ms. Viksha to explain the 38th verse of this chapter.
Thank you, sir. Hari Om. The verse goes as Tvamadideva Purusha Puranaha Tvamasya Vishwasya Param Nidhanam Vetasi Vedyam Cha Param Cha Dhama Tvaya Tatam Vishvam Anantarupa. Next slide, sir. In this chapter, Arjuna requests the Lord to show him his Vishwarupa, or the infinite cosmic form. Shri Krishna grants Arjuna divine vision to see his infinite form that comprises all the universe. Arjuna sees the entire creation in the body of the God of gods with unlimited arms, faces, and stomachs. It has no beginning or end and extends immeasurably in all directions. His radiance is similar to 1,000 suns blazing together in the sky. The sight dazzles Arjuna, and his hair stands on end. He witnesses the three worlds trembling with fear of God's laws and the celestial gods taking his shelter. He can see several sages offering prayers and singing hymns praising the god. Then Arjuna sees the Kauravas, along with their allies, rushing into the mouth of the formidable form, who looks like moths rushing with great speed towards the fire to perish. Beholding this universal form, Arjuna confesses that his heart and mind are unstable with fear. Although petrified by the appearance, Arjuna wants to know the identity of this breathtaking form of God who has no resemblance to his teacher and friend, Sri Krishna. The Lord declares that in the form of time, he is the destroyer of the three worlds. He has already destroyed the Kaurava warriors, and the Pandavas' victory is certain. Therefore, Arjuna should not be fearful anymore. He should just get up and fight. Next slide, Doctor. Overwhelmed, Arjuna starts praising the Lord, who, in his infinite form, pervades the entire universe and offers several salutations to his majestic form. He also begs for forgiveness to Sri Krishna for any offenses or acts of disrespect he may have committed in ignorance, considering him to be a mere human. Arjuna then pleads the Lord for his grace and requests him to take a pleasing form. Sri Krishna then manifests into his four-armed form, carrying a mace, disc, conch, and lotus flower in each arm. Soon after, he resumes his gentle and loving two-armed form of the charming Sri Krishna. He then tells Arjuna that before him, no one has ever seen God in this cosmic form. Even those who study the Vedas, do severe penance, charity, or fire sacrifices, etc., do not get this opportunity. Only with devotion, similar to Arjuna, can one see God, he get to know him and attain yoga or union with him. Next slide, Doctor. Arjuna's understanding of Ishvara becomes clearer and clearer as this chapter unfolds. He acknowledges Ishvara's creative power by addressing him as Adi Deva, the primal or the first Lord, the one who created Brahma, the creator. He also acknowledges that Ishvara has the power to create Ananta Rupa, an infinite number of forms, which is what we experience as Vishwa, this magnificent universe. The first name of Ishvara in Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Vishnu, is Vishwa. Ishvara has not created the universe and stepped aside from it. He dwells in it as the ancient Purusha or person, just like we dwell as the person in our body. Also, Ishvara is not located in just one specific area or corner of this universe. He is present everywhere. He is the Tatam in the phrase Yenam Sarvam Idam Tatam from the second chapter. He pervades this entire creation just like water pervades all ocean waves. Next slide, Doctor. We know that even an object like a TV screen can come up with an infinite number of names and forms, but Ishvara is far from this. He is the nature of awareness and knowledge. He is the knower of everything that is to be known, all the forms that he has created. And when all these forms are dissolved, they end up in him, the final resting place, the Paramadhama or supreme abode. To conclude, you are the primeval God and the original divine personality. You are the sole resting place of this universe. You are both the knower and the object of knowledge. You are the supreme abode. O possessor of infinite forms, you alone pervade the entire universe. Thank you. Hari Om.
So well explained by Ms. Viksha. Thank you very much. We'll take a few moments to see what Shankara Bhashya has to say about this verse. Purushaha has been explained as Puri Sayanath, that one who resides in us, and that is the Sakshi Chaitanyam. Mahapralayadu is the pralayam that happens where Vidya Mukti or the moksha happens, that is the Sarvam Jagat, for the entire Jagat. Veta Asi is the experiencer of this world through Maya. So the Lord takes the form of both the knower and the known. Vedyam is the knowable. So the Vishwa and the Sthula Prapancha, the Taijasa and the Sukshma Prapancha, the Prajna and the Karana Prapancha as the three padas, as well as the fourth pada, which is beyond the knower and the knowable, is the Lord himself, which has been explained by Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya as Nirguna Brahma iti artaha. May I now request Dr. Sheila Jaiprakash to kindly explain the 39th verse of this chapter. Dr. Sheila, please.
Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse is Vayur Yamo Agnir Varunaha Shashankaha Prajapatistva Prapita Mahascha. Namo namastestu sahasra krutva punascha bhuyopi namo namaste. In the next slide, in 7th chapter itself, Krishna has introduced that Bhagwan is the Karanam and the whole creation is the Karya. We'll see these two verses of 7th chapter. That is, Bhuhir apanalo vayuha kam mano buddhir evacha ahamkara itiyam me bhina prakritir ashtada. Krishna says the earth, water, fire, air, space, the ego, the total intellect, and also the unmanifest chit is his nature and which is divided into eightfold. The popular verse, Mat parantaram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam prottam strutre manigana iva. Oh Arjuna, there is no other cause all apart from me. All this is strung in me like beads in a string. So, the fundamental law is that the Karanam alone appears in the form of many fold Karyam. The cause alone with different names and forms appears as various effects. So just as one gold alone with different names and rupas appear as different forms of ornaments, so there is no ornament separate from gold. There are no waves and oceans separate from water. So no product separate from cause. Now, there is no creation other than God. In the next slide, we'll see the meaning of this verse. Tvam Vayu Yama Agni Varunaha Shashankaha. Behind every visible object, Bhagwan is there in the form of invisible law controlling it. And also the moral law of karma. Example, when I pollute the water or ground, there is a moral law which is governing it. So the visible Vayu, wind is a Vayu Tattvam. Yamaha means Yama Devata or Kala Tattvam. Agnir is Agni Devata. Shashankaha is moon. So Krishna says, that is Arjuna says, Krishna, you are everything. Prajapatihi, there are 14 Prajapatis like Kashya Prajapati, Daksha Prajapati, etc. They are in the Puranas. It is described as Vishnu created Brahma from his navel. Brahma creates 14 Prajapatis from whom all the human beings are born. So Krishna says that is next, the Pitamaha is a grandfather who is none other than Chaturmukha Brahmaji, who from whom the 14 Prajapatis are born. In Vedanta, this is mentioned as Hiranya Garbha. And Prapitamaha is a great grandfather. So from Brahma is born out of Vishnu's navel. So Vishnu is a great grandfather who is in Vedanta. It is Ishvaraha who is the creator of Hiranya Garbha. So Hiranya Garbha, that is Samashti Sukshma Prapancha Vishishta Chaitanyam. Ishvara, which is Samashti Karana Prapancha Vishishta Chaitanyam. All these are, that is Bhagwan alone. That's what the Arjuna is saying. So Arjuna says, Nama Namaha Astute Sahasra Krutva. So he prostrates to Krishna or the Bhagavan 1,000 times. In the next slide, Arjuna is not satisfied with this because of his intense faith, that is Shraddha and devotion. Punahascha Bhuya Api. He does again and again namaskara to Krishna. So the essence of this verse is the Krishna, that is Bhagavan, is everything. And the message is any amount of namaskara does not give satisfaction to a Vishwarupa Bhakta. Namaste, Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very nice presentation and explanation, Dr. Sheila. The point that we should very clearly understand is that a Vishwarupa Bhakta is never satisfied with any number of namaskaras that he does. Uh, Even in the uh, several other verses like the Dakshinamurti Ashtaka, Tasmai Shri Guru Murtuye Nama Idam Shri Dakshinamurtiye Namaha and Namaskara is highlighted. And it is told twice. And the essence of the Namaskara is as a Bhakta to this divine Dakshinamurti, I don't expect anything but just the ability to do Namaskara. So the Vishwarupa Bhakta has a much different role to play than a Ekarupa Bhakta, and that's the only way to go to the Arupa Bhakta. May I now request Srimati Pallavi to explain the 40th verse of this chapter. Srimati Pallavi, please.
Narayan Narayan. Nama prustada atha prishtataste. Namostu te sarvata eva sarva. Ananta vikramita vikramastvam. Sarvam samonoshi tatosi sarva. In this shloka, the meaning of the shloka is salutation to you in front and salutation to you behind. Salutation to you all around, O Lord. You are limitless power and infinite courage. You pervade everything and everywhere, and hence you are everything. Arjuna is still not satisfied praising the Lord. He says, I offer you namaskaram, 1,000 namaskaras in front of you, behind you, to your right side, to your left, and all around you. Really speaking, there is no front or behind because Lord's face is all over. Next slide, sir. And facing in all directions. Therefore, he corrects his thoughts and he rephrases his verse to say, I offer namaskara all over. He says Krishna is not in the form of Rama alone or Krishna alone, but who is in the form of everything in this creation. He is Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi, everything. He says you have got infinite strength or power. You are omnipotent because any power that is anywhere belongs to you only. You have got enormous valor and courage. You pervade in everything. For example, in one lightning stroke, they say there is tremendous electricity power. That is, if we know how to tap the electricity from one flash of lightning, we can provide electricity to a city for 1 year. But the problem is that we do not have the technology to tap the power as yet. So, when we start religion, our idea is we have to reach God after death, for which we have to travel in one of the conditions. This shloka demolishes that conditioning. There is no question of reaching God because God is always around and with us. Next slide, sir. Then why do scriptures talk about reaching God? Reaching God is dropping the notion that we are away from God, dropping the conditioning that we have to reach God. For the one who has got Vishwaroopadarshana, I have got my birth, my movement, my death, everything by His grace. The idea of time and distance travel is born out of ignorance. It is notional concept. How do you remove the ignorance? The answer is knowledge. And therefore, Vishwaroopadarshana should remove the idea of reaching God because you are Sarvam Samapnoshi. You are all pervading and therefore Tatosi Sarvaha, meaning you are everything and everywhere. You pervade in everything, therefore I say you are everything. Just like saying gold pervades in all ornaments, there is no question of gold pervading in all ornaments. In fact, gold is in the form of all ornaments. Therefore, Tatosi Sarva. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Pallavi. And you have brought out this point so well, which is what Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya also very clearly explains. These two words or phrases that come in this verse, Sarvam samapnosi is you pervade everything which is consciousness. Everything else is matter. And tvam sarva api, you are everything, which means other than consciousness, there is nothing. And Bhagwan also, the Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya also says that this Bhagwan has got that infinite skill and infinite courage. Ananta viryaha, amita vikramaha. As human beings, we know that we may have a lot of skills and no courage to do things, or we could have a lot of courage and no skills at all. But Bhagwan is the one who has the skill and the courage of infinite value to create this world. That is the explanation given by Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya for this particular verse. And so we have the other method of explaining and understanding, which is if you are alone, everything in various forms, samapnosi is dvaitam, which is an adhyaropa, and tvam sarvah asi is advaitam being established, which is apavada. You pervade everything and you are everything makes a small difference, which is of great significance.
Hearty thanks to Dr. Ravi Shankar and to all the speakers of the day for a wonderful session. Hearty thanks to all the Vedantins who have joined us today. Friends, remember to join us at 6:45 p.m. on Friday, 31st of January for the 8th session of Atma Bodha and benefit from the enlightening knowledge expounded by Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankara. Before I chant the Shanti Mantra, I would like to thank all of you, many of you who have contributed to the Guru Dakshina. But unfortunately, I find that many are yet to update and submit the Google Forms. I once again request you to submit the Google Forms, which is required for us to properly record the contribution received from you and also to issue a receipt. Let us chant the Shanti Mantra and conclude today's session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.